Got some very New York news for you. The hot water is broken in my building, and so I wasn't able to shower this morning. If I'm looking a little disheveled, it's because I am. Now, for what happened in Europe, this was the beginning of what I would say is the great part of the Europa League and the Conference League. We get a sensational coupling of matches where you're getting a lot of, in my opinion, I know I said that twice, but I believe in my opinion. This is what the Europa League and the Conference League really were designed for in the first place. Like, this is what they're supposed to be. You know, where we get teams like Aston Villa and Bologna, we get teams like Porto and Nottingham Forest, we get teams like Freiburg and Celta Vigo, right, that are playing against each other. Teams that had good seasons, that were able to earn a spot in Europe, and they have battled their way to this point. Even down in the Conference League, you get teams like Mainz and Strasbourg, Shakhtar Donetsk against AZ, Crystal Palace against Fiorentina, right? This is what these competitions, this is what they were designed for. This is what they're supposed to be. It's great. It's great for the game. It's great for the game. It's great for the viewer, because a lot of these matches were absolutely fantastic. For some reason, one of them happened on Wednesday. If anybody knows that reason, feel free to let me know. Right, Braga and Real Betis played on Wednesday, overlapping with a couple of Champions League matches. They played in Braga, or at Braga, I should say, because you know, that stadium is gorgeous. So it's definitely, it's one of those stadiums that leaves the ends open but has two massive stands on the side. It's a little disorienting. Like when you see a shot from behind the goal, you're like, oh, is this non-league? And then you see the stand on the side. I mean, the capacity looks like it's 30,000 people, and it's not even a fully around stadium. It's pretty wild concept. They jumped out to an early lead. Pretty beautiful flick goal by Florian Grilic. The pressure that Real Betis was able to kind of put on in this game eventually got to Braga. Antony ended up almost winning this for Real Betis. This is the type of result, of course, that allows Real Betis to try and take control of things at home. But it was, you know, I want to say it was basically exactly the game we probably would have expected out of this. Braga's good, though. They're slept on. They've been slept on for years. They're consistently in these lower European competitions every single year. And they're really the only Portuguese team outside the big three that has been in them every single year and has gotten to the knockouts and proven convincingly that they're able to play at this level. And I think that Braga should be looked at, if you're talking Conference League level, as the same sort of thing as a Porto or a Benfica or a Sporting, where it's like, okay, maybe they can't win the Champions League, but they're going to be tough, right? They're going to show up and it's going to be difficult. I think Braga absolutely could win the Conference League, even with this current version of itself, especially if it can get through a team like Real Betis, because a team like Real Betis is a team that's absolutely here to win this thing. Right. Now, realize I'm saying Conference League. This is one of the Europa League ties. I don't mean to cause confusion. But Real Betis is a team that's in the Europa League thinking we absolutely can win this thing. Braga might have a European trophy in its future. Like the way they play and the level they end up at, because they're not really grabbing the Champions League spots in Porto, right? Or even if they are, they're probably going to lose in the playoff and then end up falling down to the Europa League or the Conference League during the qualifying process. But it's in their price range. It's absolutely in their price range. There are going to be moments in games against teams like Real Betis where they're a little, in trouble. And it was definitely a penalty in the second half that gave the goal to Real Betis. And they did, late in the game, there was a little more space for Real Betis to run in, even though they were whistling the hell out of Antony. He still nearly singed one right into the top corner. This is a dangerous team. It's a dangerous team that you don't want to play because, Braga doesn't necessarily have that brand name of the big three teams that are coming out of Portugal. But on a given day, they can play at that level. And they are not going to be escorted out of this tournament by Real Betis. They're just not. But then we get on to the games on Thursday, and these were some, fantastic Europa League contests. I mean, this game was a daylight robbery. This was GTA 5 with the friends and a couple of bazookas breaking into the jewelry store and stealing everything. This was thievery. If you didn't actually get a chance to catch this game, you would look at it and you would think, well, Aston Villa, Premier League team, Bologna, a sandwich, not normally a European team out of Serie A. They probably just got handled by the superior money and quality of a Premier League team. Absolutely not. Bologna has been robbed in this game. Not by refereeing or anything unfair, just by the twists of fate. First of all, this offside goal felt like a goal at the time. It was called out for an offside in the build-up, but it really was, even though it was kind of a weird, scrappy goal, a goal. The Bologna in the atmosphere was incredible at this game, right? This whole game, you just end up feeling bad for the Bologna fans and the club in general because great atmosphere. They were all over them early, and then they score this goal that's called out for an offside in the build-up. And then right before the half, I mean, literally just like you couldn't have designed a more heartbreaking way for this game to go. Right before the half, set piece goal. Ezri Konsa, right before the half. Bologna ran this half. Aston Villa didn't sniff the goal the entire half. And they go into the halftime up 1-0. But Bologna's coming out of the half and going, okay, we've got 45 more minutes to really do something here. And then right out of it, Ollie Watkins scores. This is the only goal that wasn't a set piece of the three for Aston Villa. Ollie Watkins scores. And this Ollie Watkins goal, terrible turnover. Literally passing out of the back, some looping ball from one defender to another that he's chasing down. He gets to first, tries to play it up the line. It gets blocked. Bro, like this wasn't something that Aston Villa created. It was something Bologna did to themselves. In this whole match, they're like hitting the post. They're all over it. All over it. Emi Martinez made a couple of brilliant saves in this game as well. And somehow it's just 2-0 to Aston Villa, and it's like the cruelest 2-0 you've ever seen. And they're just pushing and pushing and pushing. And finally, in the 90th minute, this guy, Jonathan Rowe, who is an absolute animal, by the way. There's a Premier League team that is going to show up with a bag for Jonathan Rowe, and you're going to be like, who is he? Where did he come from? Incredible player. Immense. I've watched him now multiple times in this competition alone, and I just come away thinking he's the best player on the field. He's all over the place. He is so just good. He's just really good. He's got it between the ears. He's a dog, right? He just plays so damn hard. And he's aggressive. He attacks the goal, man. And he finally gets one. Finally. Like Bologna deserved a lot of goals in this game. They finally get one. And when they score, they're like running to go collect the ball, to try and go get another one. Because they're believing like, look, it's already, at this point when it's 2-0, 2-1, they're already going, we're really hard done here. Like this does not reflect the way this match went at all. And then just as the same at the end of the first half, corner. A second corner goal. Soul crushing. This was a soul crushing game for Bologna. Because this is not a team that gets here a lot. I mean, the same can be said for Aston Villa, right? But this is Europa League quarterfinals. Bologna, they just slayed the dragon. They just beat Roma, literally a bigger club from their own domestic league, in a dramatic back and forth tie in the last round, right? They just had to fight their way through that. They're not exhaling coming up against a Premier League team, but there's that feeling of, we've done something. Nice. We did it. We got through that situation. And now, now the wind is at our back. We've overcome a team that was really supposed to beat us, and we are flying forward into the future. What could possibly go wrong now? Everything. Everything went wrong. This was horrifying. I'm not a Bologna fan at all. I've got no ill will towards Aston Villa, and I felt terrible for Bologna watching this game. It was awful. But look, if they play this game again, they absolutely have a chance. The problem is, I believe that the mental damage of losing by 2 at home and the way that it happened is going to make it really difficult for them to go to Birmingham and actually get something from Aston Villa, alas. Then we go to Nottingham Forest, who have also conducted something of a robbery. Because Porto were all over their ass. I don't know what voodoo dolls the Premier League broke out this weekend, but in this third Europa League match, Porto was all over them. And somehow this ended up 1-1 because Porto scored, and I'm not joking here, one of the most egregious own goals you'll ever see, a back pass from over 50 yards away that he whistled by the goalkeeper and tucked inside the post. That was Nottingham Forest's goal here, right? Porto was the better team by every objective measure throughout the entire game. Didn't matter. Like the first 12 minutes of this game, you would have thought Porto was going to win this 3 or 4-0. That Nottingham Forest was just going to get escorted out of this competition violently. And then after the own goal, it was kind of a nervy amount of chances created. But there wasn't the same amount of, like the goal they scored in the 11th minute here for Porto, it was so full of swagger and skill and flair. And it just, you know, it should have been what you thought was the beginning of a rout. But Nottingham Forest was able to tighten things up after getting a literal actual gift of a goal and nearly won it. There was a goal that was disallowed because the goalkeeper got fouled. I think it was disallowed because he kind of got hit in the back of the head, you know, in the player's route to the ball. So Nottingham Forest almost stole a win here. But Porto, not as bad as they were 2 or 3 years ago. Right, more competitive, more like ready for this sort of level of competition. And Nottingham Forest isn't good, right? They're worried about getting relegated from the Premier League right now. That puts them well within striking distance of blowing this. And I think if we get a similar performance from Porto and Bologna, you could see 2 Premier League teams kind of bottle a lead position here. I know Nottingham Forest isn't in the lead, but they're coming home with a draw, which is definitely, after an away day at Porto, definitely something they would have been okay with, right? It's something they'll feel like they should be able to handle. Then there was Freiburg, Celta Vigo. This was a fun one because Freiburg, the entire league stage, just, you know, they were a defensive juggernaut that couldn't score, and now that they're playing better teams, they're beating that ass. Freiburg is a sleeper pick to be able to pull something off here. I loved this matchup because it was 2 teams. It's kind of the same as Bologna, kind of the same as, you know, Nottingham Forest, at least in the last 40 years, right? These are teams that Europe is really foreign to them. It's such an amazing opportunity for them to take the field and play European knockout matches, and it's such a big deal for the club. And Freiburg is a team that I just assumed was going to bow out at the first reasonable opportunity because they just didn't seem to have a lot of firepower on this stage. They do now. All right, they showed up at home and just ran Celta Vigo. It was a really impressive performance. Early and often. Sleeper pick maybe to win the whole thing if Freiburg is playing this well. Now, because Celta Vigo is playing at home, you can't just like put a bookmark in this tie and say, oh, this shit's over. But it kind of feels like it. Because Freiburg did prove something earlier on in this competition. If they don't want you to score and they want to shut a game down, it's something they have in their locker. It's a way they know how to play. They got a little Arsenal lever back there. And I would expect them to flick that switch in the second leg and we're going to get like a 1-0 to Celta Vigo or something. But Freiburg has used its home advantage to construct a serious lead. And we're looking at a really interesting second set of matches in every one except for this one. I think Braga Betis has a chance to be fun. I think Villa has a real chance to bottle because they got outplayed by Bologna. And then Porto looked like the better team ahead of Nottingham Forest and just couldn't find a way to actually win down to the end where they're like curling shots just beyond the far post. So we're set up for a really spectacular day. A final day in the Europa League that'll be worth watching. Now, on to my beloved child, the Conference League. Rayo Vallecano has blown out AEK Athens 3-0. This is what they needed to do. You didn't want to go to Greece playing a spicy second leg, and Rayo Vallecano has not gone to Greece playing a spicy second leg. Now, it was one of those games where AEK Athens, they had the ball and they were able to get forward, but the best chances, the best moments were coming to Rayo Vallecano, and there was a feeling, honestly, that this could have been worse. Not like, even though AEK Athens was in this, you know, Rayo Vallecano, there was an opportunity for this to be a 4 or a 5-0 if the ball broke the right way. They got on them early. The second minute goal, like that kind of early goal helps shift the mentality of these sorts of matchups so much, because playing at a La Liga stadium is just not something that a team like AEK Athens, even though the Greek league is big, gets to do very often. So this is a very a resounding performance that gives a team like Vallecano, where Europe is, again, a foreign adventure for them. It gives them an opportunity to, they're staring right at a semifinal right now. They're taking advantage of what I would consider a pretty easy draw. Crystal Palace against Fiorentina. Jean-Philippe Mateta gets back into his goal-scoring ways, but I'll be honest, he bricked a couple of chances in this game. He did not. He did not look razor sharp, but a huge third goal in the 90th minute to give Crystal Palace a really convincing lead over Fiorentina. Crystal Palace looked like the way better team early on in this game, and at the end, Fiorentina had some spells in the middle where they gave themselves a chance, but they were definitely struggling a little bit with the fact that they did not have Moise Kean for this game. I'm not somebody that has enough ball knowledge to be able to tell you where he was. He was missing with a calf injury. I don't know how serious that was, but they were definitely missing a guy that could make a difference up top, and Moise Kean is that guy. So Fiorentina, fortunately for them, has pulled themselves out of the relegation conversation a little bit. So they're not as worried about the league as they were, but they're also in 16th or whatever. And so the Europe, even though they've been in the Conference League for years on end, is getting away from them fast. And that home match is going to be a bit of an obituary for this era where Fiorentina was able to compete in the Conference League at a very high level. Great for Crystal Palace, though, to finally, they've been controlling matches in Europe, but to finally be able to actually just win, like spread your wings and win by a couple goals and really level a team. Crystal Palace will now be going through this believing they have every chance to win. Mainz beat Strasbourg 2-0. A couple of early goals for Mainz to give them the advantage. Two German-sounding teams, but Strasbourg's in France. Got to make sure you get that right. A lot of wars over that over the years. But yeah, Mainz. I love all this, right? Because I feel like I'm a broken record. It's like, well, Mainz, not a team that's normally in Europe or familiar with European matches, now staring at a European semifinal. I freaking love the Conference League. And then there's a great story developing as well. I've been waiting for the Ukrainian teams the last couple of years have struggled with the fact that there's like one game where they just get fucked up, right? They'll play one game, they lose 4-1, the other match they win 2-1, and then they're out, right? That's the way the consistency has been the struggle. Obviously, this is a country that's been at war for like 4 or 5 years now. The fact that they're able to still keep these clubs like Shakhtar Donetsk playing, neutral site European matches. They're still playing, their matches domestically, but they obviously had to move because Donetsk is a border region with Russia. Not exactly a great place to be playing matches right now. But Shakhtar, in the last round, I was like, damn, they're looking pretty good. They're doing it again. AZ, not the worst draw, obviously, for them, but they got into the second half, and this kid Allison's one of those wonder kids on Football Manager, and they opened it up. 3 goals in 11 minutes. For Shakhtar Donetsk, they got a 3-0 lead, which means we are looking at a very likely situation where Shakhtar Donetsk of Ukraine is going to be headed to a European semifinal going forward. It's got a chance very quickly to become like the story of European football. Because obviously Donetsk 15, 16 years ago was considered this, team that could compete for a Europa League title. They play in a country that's been at war for near 5 years, right? Like this would be unbelievable if they could actually do it. Now we'll see what happens when the rubber beats the road, right? If everybody holds on to their leads, because we got 4 multi-goal leads in the Conference League. You get Vallecano, Crystal Palace, Mainz, and Shakhtar Donetsk. I think Shakhtar can totally handle all 3 of those teams. I don't think that there is an angel of death type team coming out of that would just be like, well, there's just no chance. And once you get to that semifinal, anything could happen. And somebody pointed this out somebody pointed this out, I think it was on Twitter, I don't remember. But the construction of this team is just vintage Shakhtar Donetsk. The front of the team and the skill on the perimeter, all Brazilians, right? Shakhtar Donetsk, despite the war, has kept with its same development strategy. They find undervalued Brazilian players, give them a ramp into European football, and then the core back here, all Ukrainian. The defensive midfielder, the goalkeeper, the 2 center backs, that's the Ukrainian core of the team. This is, despite everything, like a vintage construction with Allison and Cal Elias, who are a couple of football manager wonder kid type players, a vintage construction of a Shakhtar Donetsk team. They're rolling back the years and they're giving us that Shakhtar team that, was sending talented Brazilians to every club in Europe, it felt like at one point. We're so back. The sport is back. The farther Shakhtar Donetsk goes, the more back we are in general, just as a phrase.